Hi guys, Train Girl here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to paint a realistic background for your model railway. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to cover is composition techniques. So these include things like how to frame a scene and the rule of threes. Once you've got that down pat, you can then plan what you're going to paint, and then I'm going to run you through a step-by-step guide on how to paint your background. One of the most important things is the rules of three, especially with horizontal lines when you are doing a landscape picture. So for example here, I have got one of my paintings that I have done. So this has been divided into 3 horizontal lines. So we've got a line across here, which is our foreground. We've got our top line here, and in the middle, we have got our background, and then we have got the sky above. Ensuring that you keep this basic element of your painting will give it a nice balance, and it will frame the picture really well. Another key to making your background is the framing of your painting. So you can use things like trees, mountains, buildings to frame your model railway. So for example, in this painting, we have the hut in the front. So we want to make sure that all of the eyes go to that hut first, and then it's going to continue around, and also this river is creating depth in the scene, which I'm going to show you in the painting that we're going to do. Materials that you're going to need to paint your background do not need to be expensive. So here I've just got an offcut from one of my baseboards, which is a 3mm MDF board from Bunnings. I've also got myself some brushes, medium size to smaller size brushes. We've got a palette, I've also got a plate, some paper towel, and then I also picked up some paints from Bunnings, and these are the most basic paints that you will need to create your background. So here I've just got some white, brown, black, probably won't use the black that much, and then I've also got some smaller tubes of green and blue. This is all you're going to need. There may be a couple of instances depending on what you want to paint, add some highlights of yellows and reds and those types of things. But today we're purely just going to be using these ones and see how we go. So I'm just taking this really small diorama that I made, and I'm going to be placing it on the very bottom of my baseboard. And then I'm going to take my pencil and mark the very top of where the grass starts, basically. And then from here, I can work out my rule of 3. Next, I'm going to do a sketch of where I want my mountains to go and where I think that best a tree would be placed and those types of things. So remembering the rules of 3 and the composition and framing a scene. So we want the eye to be drawn to go inwards and upwards. So we know that we need to create some form of roundness, and we've got the height there as well. Might add some trees on the end here, just to add a little bit of framing. I'm going to add a couple of trees here too. We can add some mountains, probably add some mountains up here. And then that's it. Now we can start painting. I changed my view because I am left-handed and I realized that there was a shadow in the video. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pretty much paint the background white. So we're going to grab our white here, and I'm just going to give this a once over pretty much everywhere except for the very base, because you won't be able to see that. I'm also right-handed when it comes to these types of things. So there's a fun fact. We just want to paint this whole thing white, and then obviously we're going to go over it with some blue. Now the thing is here, if you look up images of landscapes, you will always see that the sky is very light blue on the bottom, and then as it goes upwards and upwards, it gets darker blue. A lot of the times when people are new to painting backgrounds, they will just do a completely blue background and then just one color of grass. This is great for practicing, and if you just want a basic background, that's absolutely no problems, you can do that. But this sort of gives it more of that realism, that if that's what you're after with your background. This is quite possibly the most boring part of doing the background, is the base white. I promise it's more fun after this. The best thing about paint is if you make a mistake, you just wait for it to dry and go over it again. Now, I'm also using acrylics. You can use oils. I would practice a little bit with, if you are going to use oils. I just prefer acrylic because I'm extremely impatient. But you can use any paint that you would like. This is just really good for beginners, and it's much more cost effective as well. Now I will change to my left hand. I'm going to be making sure that I put enough white right in the center of the painting. This is more to help the eye draw inwards to the painting. If you're going to be doing, say, a 2-3 meter layout, it's not generally necessary to have to focus on the center of the painting. It's just more essential to focus on the rule of 3, so the foreground, the background, and the sky. So I'm just going to pop a little bit more white in the middle here. Now, if you're modeling after a certain era or mountain or any type of scenery, it's really good to have a few reference images. I'm just doing this painting off memory and what I think looks good, but generally it's really good to use a reference image, especially for the right coloring and making sure that you just get the proportions correct. All right, so now that we've got the base pretty much painted, I'm really happy with that. It's very, very thin layer. It's probably take about 10 minutes to dry, and then we're going to start doing the sky. Okay, now that the white is pretty much dry, I'm going to be adding some blue to my white paint that I've still got, and I'm going to be adding the blue, darker blue more up the top, and then the lighter blue down the bottom. So I'm going to progressively get darker. All right, so adding this. Now, this is far too dark. So I'm going to add a lot more white to this. So I say always start off light, and then you can get progressively darker. That is far too dark to have on your background. So let's add a little bit of white. A little bit. So I definitely like that blue a lot more. So I'm going to start off with this color here. Basically working my way down. I can add more white as well if I need to, but this is a good starting point. So it is that pale blue that we're looking for. You don't want to jump in and just use this blue. That's far too dark. Okay, so I'll just start from the top and work my way down. Just concentrating on making this pretty much like the solid blue and then fading it out. This is why it's also important to have a high quality brush. If you are using a more of a rough, cheaper brush, so this one here I've had for quite a few years. This brush here, the bristles on the end are a little bit worn and they're a little bit hard, so I wouldn't be using this to do the sky, but I can use this to do clouds and those types of things. So again, I still think this is probably too blue. We're gonna add more white. This is all about learning and making mistakes and correcting your mistakes. It also can sometimes help to add water, especially with this paint. This paint's actually quite thick for how cheap it is, so if it's looking a little bit thick on the canvas, you might want to just use a tiny bit of water just to thin it out a little bit. Just makes it easier to, well, there's a few things. It dries quicker, it applies nicely. This is the absolute darkest I'm going to go. So from basically here on down, I want to add a lot more white. So we're going to take that blue that we had. We just want to fade it in. This is when water will come in as well. So we thin that down because we want to blend that colour. So I'm going to start pretty much down here, and then remember, water will be your best friend in this instance. So start down here and just blend up. It's really good to make sure that you do this while this paint is still quite wet. Now's a good time just to blend out any of the heavy brush strokes that you've got in there. If you're a little bit heavy-handed like I am. I'm sorry also if you can hear rain, because it is a very, very yucky rainy day today in Melbourne. I'm going to add a little bit more white to my very pale blue, because again I want to get that centre bit just a little bit more pale. So as you can see, we're progressively getting, so what we started with, it's what we chose, we sort of then started going up a bit. So I'm just gonna add, yeah. Remember, if you make a mistake, you can always go back and paint over it. It's not a big deal. What does Bob Ross call them? Happy accidents. Is that what he calls them? I think so. Okay. I'm really happy with that. It's very basic, but I'm very, very happy with how it looks so far. So I'm gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna start the base part and then work up around that. Pretty much at the end, you can just add the clouds and stuff like that. So we'll leave them till last, but now we're gonna be working on the base. So we're gonna let this dry for about 15-20 minutes, and then come back, and then we'll start framing the base as well. Okay, so the background is pretty much dry now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to plan out the rest of the background / foreground. So what I'm gonna use for that is I'm going to use grey, probably just like a small to medium sized brush. I would use a smaller brush for this. So we know that we're gonna be doing a couple of trees here. Remember the scale as well that you're working in. So you don't want to have your trees at the front, your real trees that you've made or purchased, and then the trees in the background be too big. So you want the trees in the background to be smaller than your trees that you have put on your layout. So all I'm going to be doing now is just creating the background for the foreground. So we know that we're going to be putting some mountains in. So firstly, let's just make sure that they're in the right position. So let's just make sure they're in the right position. So I'm probably going to start up here. And just work my way down. You might want it a little bit. No, we want it to just be framed there, creating a little bit of a valley. Put a bigger one at the back there. So now you can kind of see how it's going to be framed. We've drawing the eye from the sides and pushing it inwards and upwards. Down here, so we want to give this a little bit of depth as well. So we're just going to push these back a bit. The fainter your mountains are, the further away they are. So this particular mountain here is going to be very light, and then as it comes forward, they can be a little bit darker. So I know down here I'm going to be adding some trees, so I'll just block all this out. Just Just grab that grey and we're just going to block all this out. I'm just going to add more grey to where the darker spots are. Just makes it a little bit easier for the colour layering. Now, where the light is coming from, it's going to be coming from, when you're viewing a layout, you're viewing it from the front. So you can imagine that the sun is going to be right here, basically, and we're going to be shining down. So our darker sides, to frame the image, we're going to go darker and then the sun inwards here. So I'm going to be concentrating a lot of darkness on either end, and we want to shine the light on that really bright white part in the middle. So just going to go over here and just fill in those edges there. This is going to be all done over with a little bit of blues and a little bit of green as well. A lot of the background will be blue, and then you add elements of the green as you're coming forward. So just filling in that area there. So I'm pretty happy with that. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to add a grey brown to the base, and then so that will blend up nicely when we add the grass as well. So once we have the background, like the base, and you've done the blocking, that's sort of when you can be a little bit more creative with what you're going to add, like little buildings or little trees or those types of things. So getting this down, it is the most important part though, because this is what sort of frames the whole thing. So I've just added a little bit of brown into that mix. I'm just going to fill in this whole area down here. It's pretty much just going to be another base coat for your foreground. I'm also just going to fill in this area a little bit, just so I've got a little bit more colour and texture to work with. So really lightly, I'm going to draw this line. So this side is getting hit by light, this side isn't, so this side's going to be a lot darker. And we know that this mountain in the background is going to be really, really far away. So this one's going to be faint and darker. And again, I'm going to go over this with some really dark, shady blues as well. Okay, I'm going to let that dry now, and then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to start adding a little bit more details to this midsection here. Okay, so taking out small to medium sized brush, and I'm going to use white again. So I'm going to take this grey blue. I'm going to be working on these back bits here. So I just want to get that mountain off the page. And then we know that the light's going to be hitting that side. Go over here. That's going to be a little bit lighter on that edge. Okay. Beautiful. Now at this point you could probably use the tip of your brush, and we're just going to do it straight upwards, and then you can add a faint outline of trees. I'm also going to take this grey, and we're going to apply the same method to this one here, but I would like to add a little bit of green, lighter side, darker side. So I'm just going to start with this ridge up here and work my way down, cutting off that back one there. See how it's slightly a little bit lighter than the back one, and I'm just going to go let that thin itself out as well, and we'll just block that out. This will pretty much area will just be full with trees anyway, so it doesn't matter. I think I want to define this line a lot more so you can see the difference. Let me just go here. Just adding really gently. To that mountain. I'm going to start from here because I want to blend up. I'm just going to do some squiggly lines and blend. So we're getting the shapes now. Blend that all in. And just keeping that side light, blending it. Block all this in. And then I know down here there's going to be a little bit more bushes and trees and stuff like that. So I'm just going to go in and do some vertical strokes. Again, doesn't matter, it's going to be covered. And I'm just going to create a little bit of a curve here as well to frame it off. It probably won't even hurt to sort of get this a little bit darker here as well. So I would create that definition and then head it up a bit and then blend. You don't want the background to be the focal point. You want the trains and the, you know, your diorama or your creation that you're making to be the focal point. So this is just being able to give it that background that it needs to really stand out. So it doesn't need to be perfect, it just really helps with it's pleasing to the eye. And I just want to blend. We're going to add some other things too later on down the track, but once you start adding the trees, you'll really see the difference that it will make. So on this side as well, I'm just going to add some, pretty much the exact same mountain there, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so while that dries, I'm going to concentrate on this back bit here. This is just going to be a field, and again, it has to be quite far away. So I'm going to do an even lighter grey-green of that back one. So we're just going to go across. Look how foggy, and remember, we're keeping the light coming from straight forward above your model. So keep that really white there. This end here, we just need to curve that around a bit as well because we're going to be adding trees. So just adding. Alright, so now we've blocked out the whole thing and we can now focus on the very front. Now, if you've still got your marker there, you'll just know that this is still just an inch. So we're not focusing too much on from here below, but it is important to blend. So from probably maybe half an inch, that's where I would start doing the foreground painting. And you're going to want to match the grass that you are using on your layout. That is a very important thing. A lot of people, when they're first starting out and they're doing the foreground, they will just use green and they won't match the grass to the image that they've portrayed with their layout. So I know what grasses that I particularly like to use in my models, so I pretty much know the colour. I'm still going to use these paints because we've got the foundation of the grey. So I'm just going to take green. So we're only blocking this part because then you can add trees, and then you can go over. If you were to add the grass and do everything of that first, then you're probably not going to get the same foreground effect. So as I said, I'm just blocking this foreground part out, so just so we can match. So the next thing that we're going to add is the trees, which is my favourite part. I'm going to be adding trees to this section here. We're going to try and avoid this section here where we're going to pull that foreground forward. So we're just going to add the trees onto the end. Now we can still use the colours that we've got here, and we might add a little bit more brown to this one here. So we're going to start at this end and work our way in. And we're just going to do some lines, that's it. We're adding all the low lights. We don't want to overthink this at all, because this will all be blended and there's going to be and just scratch and blend them up. We go to the base of the mountain, and we're just going to follow that all along there, right to the base. Pulling away, pull, pull, pull. If we pull the other way, the lighting won't hit the right way. So we're just pulling all this way. Okay, so now that we've added the trunks, I'm going to add the leaves on top, again keeping it very neutral, greys, greens, blues. So we're just going to be adding them to the tops of this section, also adding a little bit of roughage down the bottom, giving it a little bit more a visual appeal to the eye, and then we'll see how it looks. Okay, so coming in here first, I'm just literally just going to slap this on. So you're just going to take that, the darker it is, the closer it is. So that's a bit better now. And I'm just going to dab that on. Don't worry about if it's not smooth or anything like that, that doesn't really matter. We're just adding it to the tops. Just add. Doing everything dark on the left hand side of the trees. But we'll see. Height to some of the trees than others. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. You just go along and blend out. A little bit more dark to the edges of these trees, just a few, just to sort of give that light, dry brush. No water is needed. Now I've done this side, I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side and come back. Okay, so now we have trees on either side, and all I'm really going to do now is just add a couple of bushes to the front, and then we're going to add some clouds. So for the bushes, I'm going to take my medium-sized round brush, and we want to use this to fill in a couple of these areas and make just a couple of bushes. Just keep in mind, remember the size of your bushes. So just gonna go really, really lightly of just random little spots. Think also of like fading them out. So I'll put some over here, and then after this we can just add. Avoiding this area if possible, if that's what you're... Really easy. And then I'm going to take quite a stiff brush here. So this one has been used and abused. I would call this kind of like my stippling brush. And I'm just going to add some tarnished green sort of white. And we're going to use this brush on top of those spots and flick it up. You can add a little bit of yellow. I'm still going for like that bluey green type of thing. So I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing, and we're just going to take them and flick them up and create little grass spots. Okay, so while these are still wet, I'm just going to take that greeny white, just put it in a mixture of things, and we're just going to take that up and I'm just going to dry that out a bit, make it more stipple, and then just flick up. Take it, flick it up. You're not blending, you're creating sort of like a grass illusion. So we're just flicking up with that white. Doesn't matter if we do, gives it a little bit of, gives some highlights to the front area. Taking and flicking dry grass. Just putting it to the base of that dark green and dragging up. Super, super easy. Doing the same here. Getting that little grass spots. Okay, so we're nearly finished. All I want to do now is just add just a couple of highlights onto the ridges on this mountain I'm happy with. I'm just going to clean up just a few of these lines here, add just a couple of highlights just to define this mountain here, and then we're going to add some clouds just to make it more defined. So you can always go back and add little details. I'm going to add it to the top of this ridge. So the sun is going to come down from here. This is like a greeny grey, and then I'm going to drag, really dividing that side. I'm also going to do it the same on the other end. So just bring it down right on that ridge. Some really light green, almost white, right to the top of that ridge where the sun will be shining on top. Very gentle. This just helps with depth. Tiny bit on this back end. Okay, so from this point onwards, you could add sheep, a building, more trees, depending on what you wanted to add it. I'm just going to leave it like this. I really like it like this. I really want to see what some of my models look in front of it, which I'll show you guys. Now I'm just going to be adding the clouds. I'm just going to clean up this because I don't need any more green. So I'm just going to clean this all up, and then I can add the clouds, and then we will see the final results. So we're back, everything's clean, except I just put some paint on my desk. And we're going to be doing some clouds. So clouds are very easy. They're just, you have to be very light and delicate, and you can just build them up. So what I'm going to be using is these two brushes. I think I'm going to start off with just popping on some white with these ones. I'm thinking I just want to add some very fine line ones. So we're just going to go up and across, just remembering where the light is coming from, which is from the front here. I'm going to be adding one there and maybe just a little one in the middle. So rule of 3, it does look better when you don't overload it with clouds and not make them so clunky and cartoony. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to take my white. I'm actually just going to be dry brushing that out a little bit just so we can just do the outlines of what we're going to do. So I'm going to start on this side. I definitely think that when you're doing the rule of 3, you've got 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm just going to put one cloud here, one cloud here, one cloud here. I'm going to give them different heights as well. So I definitely think that one cloud over here will look really good. So I'm just going to start by gently dragging across. I haven't got much on my brush. It's all being pushed to the back, and I'm making sure that the bottom of the cloud doesn't have too much paint on it. You just want it to blend out. You don't want to overload the canvas unless you're doing some type of sunset scene or something like that. And then I'm just going to blend it out. Yeah, so doing the cloud, I'm just going to add the little bits on top, just to where the light is reflecting, really lightly dabbing, and then just dragging across. You don't want to make it too crazy. And just drag across. And then I'm going to take that really dry and good brush and just wisp it away. Really light, nice, fluffy cloud. Pop this cloud here. A little itty bitty one. Just like this. Bring it down. Ta-da! And now it's all finished. So I'm just going to grab a couple of dioramas, pop them in front of it, take a couple of photos just so you guys can see the different angles that you can get from this type of painting. Yeah. And that's it, guys. With the right composition and a few little painting techniques, you can accomplish a background that is perfect for your model railway layout. If you've come this far and liked my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If you have any more ideas for future things that you would like to see from me, either painting or modeling or anything like that, please comment down below. I'll try to respond to everybody. Thank you so much for all the new subscribers that I have. I see you guys and I really, really appreciate it. I hope you all have a fantastic day and I'll see you next time. Cheers.